All right, time to configure our router. It's getting exciting. Our network's coming together. I hope you're enjoying the process of actually getting on this equipment and configuring this equipment, because it's pretty cool stuff. I always thought of when I was working for a company and we ordered new equipment and I had to configure new equipment. I felt like it was Christmas, like I got a new piece of equipment to work on. And I hope you have some of that same excitement to this stuff, because it is pretty fun stuff to watch it all start communicating and watch it all come together. So let's start looking at that router and seeing what that router configuration looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up one of my configs that I did for my switches, because it's going to be very similar to what we're going to do with this one. I'm going to take a look at this HQS3. That's the one that we use to configure the switch. I do need to erase the config, so I'm going to erase the startup config, but I don't have a VLAN.dat, so I don't have to do that one right there. And the IPv6 is a little different process. So we're going to change this to be a little different process here. So I can delete this right here. The command that I'm going to use is the IPv6 Unicast routing. So we'll include that command. I won't need to necessarily get in there and save the configuration and reload quite yet. So I'm going to leave it as that. And then we will have to exit out of there in fact, actually what we probably could do is just move this IPv6. We'll move that down until right here, right before we configure that. So we'll remove this altogether. We're going to set the host name. We'll set the clock. We'll configure the clock on it. We'll do the IPv6 Unicast routing. We're going to set the NTP server. Actually, we're not going to set that. We have different plans in the future to do NTP with these devices, but we're not going to set it for the router at this point. So the host name for the router, we're going to call this R1. We've got the message of the day, so that's my TechnoSurge logo. The logging console, still want that. We want the encrypt all the passwords, so that's good. We'll enable the secret. We will configure the line console on it. We will still configure SSH onto it, so that's still all applicable. And we will then the VLAN, there isn't a VLAN on this, so we're going to remove the VLAN, although some of these configurations we're going to want on our interfaces. So let's cut this part out and paste it now on our interface that we're going to create. So I'll just paste it down here for now. And then this VLAN interface can go away altogether, so because we don't have VLAN set up on it. So we'll remove this, and the interface, and it's FA01 is the one that we said that we were going to configure for this. We don't need to do the range, so we'll remove the range command on here. The IP address is going to be that gateway, so we will configure the gateway on there. So 10.1.0.1, we'll configure that. The IPv6 address, we're going to statically assign it for now, and we will put a description on there. This is the headquarters network. Link to HQ-S1. All right, we also will have to, since this is a router, do a no shut on this interface to make sure it comes up. So we'll do a no shut. And then these other interfaces, we're not going to do anything with any of the other interfaces. The other interfaces are automatically shut down, so we can remove all of those. And then we'll still want to do a copy run start on this, and then we'll do our testing. So here is now our configuration file that we can use in our router. All right, I have it all set up now where I have my console into the router where we're going to do our configurations. I have the configuration file for R1 that we're going to paste into there, and I also have my passwords. So let's get started with this. I've already taken the first steps of erasing the startup config, so we're starting with a brand new image here. There's no configurations on this, so I'm going to click No for the initial configuration dialog. And then what we'll do is we'll get into this router. I'm going to copy the commands over here on the left-hand side. So I'll copy this. There, we're getting into the routers coming up here. And I'm first of all going to get into the enable mode and set the clock. And we're going to set the clock to the current time. So 1:44:00. And just realize I may need to set this for, let's see. Yeah, so we'll do, how about 13:44:00. And then this is the 6th of June, 2022. So we'll hit enter with that. I'm going to then configure this for the IP version 6. And we got the rest of this is pretty much the same as the other switches that we've been configuring. So I'll throw that in there. Let's see, we have everything up to this password, I guess. So we'll do this one first. Control C, post that in there. Enable secret, and for R1, the enable password, I have it right here. So I'll copy this, paste it in here, hit enter. We'll do something similar with the console. We'll paste this in here, space, the console. We'll copy that password, paste it. There, that's in there. We'll do the login, exit. All right, now we'll generate the RSA key for this. So we'll copy this, paste it in here. It's going to ask me for how many bits, 1024. And it's going to go through that process. We'll copy the next set of lines here, paste that into there, copy the password for myself here. So copy password, hit enter. And then we have now this interface that we'll configure. So the interface, there it is. We'll copy this, we'll paste into here. And we'll copy run start. All right. And so next what we'll do is we are going to see if everything, oh, I have to exit out of there. Did that again, didn't I? So need another exit in here for this. So, okay. So now we have saved everything. Everything is good. Now we can start testing this out to see if we have some connectivity. I'm going to pull up a command prompt. Notice one thing that I always do is I always start out with a ping to see if I at least have basic connectivity. So it's a real good start to just see if you have some sort of connectivity, and then based off of that, then you can proceed to trying to make an SSH connection. So looks like we've got it's struggling a little bit here. So I need to check to see if I've got everything plugged in to the correct ports, and then we will troubleshoot this to see what's going on. All right, I checked the port on the router, and as I suspected, I had the cable plugged into the wrong port. The cable should have been plugged into FA01, and I plugged it into FA00. So now we should have connectivity. Let's go ahead and try this ping again and see what happens. Of course, the first one is always a request timeout, or I shouldn't say always, but often is a request timeout because it still needs to find the MAC address associated with 10.1.0.1. So it does that ARP request to figure that out. So now we have connectivity to it. So what we can do is we can now bring up and see if we have an SSH connection to it. So I'm going to say a new session. I'm going to copy one of these others. I'll just load it up, but this time we're going to go to 10.1.0.1 and we're going to call this R1 and I'll hit save on it right there. And then let's see if it opens up. So this is the first time connecting to this device. Since it's the first time connecting to this device, I have to accept the self-signed certificate. So I'm going to accept this. And now I can get into here using this password. I'll paste that into there. And I am on this machine. So now I'm connected to R1. R1 is all configured. I do need to go back and save a copy of this. So I'm going to change settings, go to logging, do printable output, apply. I'll do a show run. Oh, it doesn't like where I'm putting that, does it? Let's just make sure that's being saved to the correct spot. So I'm going to change settings, logging, and I didn't give it the proper name. So I'm going to save it as R1 here. So R1, click save. Apply, hit enter. I'm going to go through and save all these configurations. And now I have a copy of it. So there's my configurations. R1 is all set up. We have connectivity to it. So our network is pretty much up and running at this point in time. We've got the full network up and running. So like I say, it's pretty exciting when you start getting in here and start configuring it and start seeing it actually work. That is, you can actually ping these different devices, and when you configure it, it works as designed. So pretty happy with how that turned out. And usually there's a little bit of troubleshooting. I was pretty minor in this case. And obviously, the more complex of type of networks that you're setting up, the more troubleshooting could possibly come into play. But we'll talk about troubleshooting in another video. But pretty excited about having this set up, and thanks for joining me.